Hi, everybody. Today's Sunday, March 29th, 2026, and our dear friend Sas Krapivnik is here with us. Welcome back, Sas.
How you doing? It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, great to see you back, Sas. Let me start with what's going on, latest, developments in this war, or somehow escalations, let's put it this way, in this war that is happening. We've learned that the Chinese satellite imagery from one of their satellites that show how the U.S. military aircraft at Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia was targeted by Iranians. It's E3C AWACS,
Yeah,
and
expensive
and
piece of equipment.
the other one is E11A planes alongside, together with refueling F-16s and refueling aircrafts. W- From what you've seen so far, it seems that Iran, despite having these sort of lot of hitting, the United States together with Israel is hitting the energy infrastructure in Iran, but they're keeping their focus mostly on the targets that are related to the military operation of the United States. What is your understanding the way that Iran is continuing with this fight?
Oh no, Iran is servicing. When I say servicing, that's a euphemism for destroying. Iran is servicing Western industry in the Middle East or in the Persian Gulf quite effectively too. It's just that President Win Bigly, aka Trump, because he win bigly, as he puts down, I win bigly. It's so much for grammar. That's what I'm calling him now, President Win Bigly. He has destroyed Iran for 29 days now. He's destroyed every day. He's destroyed Iran, and Iran doesn't have anything left. But for some reason, Iran keeps shooting a lot of missiles, drones, and everything else being destroyed. I guess they rebuild them at night. But the point is Iran has enough assets to hit both military and industrial targets in parallel. For example, two Iranian steel plants have been hit by the Israelis. Iran returned a favor, hitting the Israeli plant and 5 other plants in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, in UAE, in Saudi Arabia. They somehow still have quite a few missiles to go. So Iran has a giant reserve of missiles, and they're still producing missiles and drones. And you see the videos that are coming out of Tel Aviv and other places. Missiles still are coming in, and considering the people that let those videos through, they're facing up to I think 15 years in prison from the Israeli government if they're caught. So they're really, those videos that get posted. Those people are posting at a grave personal risk to their own freedom. So that's not just people posting. I mean, that's a serious risk that they're taking on themselves. And we see that there are bigger and bigger demonstrations starting in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv and other cities against the Israeli government by Israelis, by anti-Zionist Jews, and by others who don't want this over. They're still a minority. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still less than 20%, but they're growing, which is a good sign. But in Kuwait, Kuwait's close enough to Iran that we've actually seen videos of Iranian drones, FPV drones with really big battery packs, flying around looking for something to blow up. At this point, that's worth the effort. And there's nobody shooting at them. Nothing. The bases are just easy targets. And in Saudi Arabia at Prince Sultan, which was the question to begin with, I had it on very good intelligence. Actually, not my person, but through a person directly from that base. 2 weeks ago, the Saudis told the U.S. military, "You're on your own. We ain't helping you. We're neutral. That's it. Survive the best you can." And those bases, interestingly enough, they don't have bunkers. They never built bunkers. They didn't think that any conflict would last that long, and they were very, very reliant on their anti-aircraft systems. They thought the anti-air would be able to handle anything. Well, those systems are either out of ammunition, out of interceptor missiles, or they've been destroyed. So that's how that goes. Well, the issue here is now that Iran has free rein on to destroy, hit these bases. There's nothing there to stop them. And amazingly, I mean, I don't know how, but Iran keeps getting satellite imaging from of these bases. I know, like, Americans are. I think the Americans are the only satellites in space, right? Because they've forbidden. Trump has now forbidden any satellite imaging coming out of there at all for over the last month. So nobody sees the damage. But amazing, I guess it turns out there's more than one country that has satellites up. And they may have an axe to grind with the U.S., like say in Ukraine. I'm not saying that who's doing it, but apparently there's some people that would like to do proxy back. Let the viewer decide who I'm talking about. You have smart viewers. I think they get the point. So Iran has quite a bit of the fighting capability, and there's reports coming out that they've hit American the 82nd Airborne troops that are arrived in Kuwait. So they're not waiting to be invaded somewhere. They're taking the war directly to wherever the troops are. And Kuwait was complaining that they were being attacked by Iran, and these are guests of Kuwait. Well, if you're the Plotsdarm for the future invasion, don't be surprised you get hit. They're not, Iran is not Saddam Hussein, who sat there for 6 months, believing for some reason that he wasn't going to get attacked. Iran's already been attacked, and Iran is doing what Iran should be doing to defend itself.
What is your understanding of Zelensky going to these Arab states to help them? It's somehow amazing to see Zelensky going there, because the United States was there. The United States has everything in those countries, had everything in those countries. They couldn't do anything. And right now, Zelensky somehow is a superhero for these Arab states to help them. What is the capability of Ukraine when it comes to the help that they can give to these Arab states?
Well, there's two factors here at play. First of all, hi, remember me? Hi, I'm here. Hi. The little midget called Zelensky. Yeah, he's no longer being on the front page of everybody's news. Yeah. The coming famine, the arrived energy crisis in Europe, and there will be in the European Union, and there will be a famine, at least for the lower classes. By midsummer, prices will double, if not triple, for food items, because they're looking at having half the crop that they normally have, because it's already in the south of Europe. It's already planting season. North of Europe, the planting season is coming up in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and there's no fertilizer. Yep. And without modern chemical fertilizers, the whole green revolution was built on that. You're looking at half the crop, if not more, if not less, especially a lot of these areas. So there's going to be starvation. I'm not saying whole nations are going to starve, but the lower classes that are already having troubles feeding their families. I have a friend of mine, Lorenzo. He's a poli-sci professor in Italy, and he was telling me half a year ago that a lot of the poorer Italian families and the lower middle class Italian families, they have trouble feeding themselves and their families by week 4 of the month, because the money's out. And wait till the food prices skyrocket, because there's going to be a much smaller crop across the world, across a lot of different countries. So, Zelensky somehow dropped off the front page, and he needs to be back on the page. That's one, because he wants the attention, because how can you ask for money if you're not on the front page? And two, he really doesn't want to be inside Ukraine, especially if Russia finally decides, if the leadership in Russia finally decides to, let's get rid of him. So he really doesn't. He spends as little time inside Ukraine as possible the last 4 years. Zelensky has his tours of Europe and Asia and wherever else constantly. I don't think there's ever been a wartime ruler that spent as little time in his country as Zelensky has. I mean, it's the exception when he's home than when he's not. Having said that, how much can Zelensky help? He's out of ammunition interceptors inside Ukraine, except for certain areas, like center of Kiev. So most of Ukraine is now flyover country for anything that Russia has. Look, the UAE, unless they were trying to do some kind of deception trick here, the UAE let the president of UAE, what's his name, Mohammed, it's MBZ, whatever.
Yeah, MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed. Yeah.
Bin Zayed. Well, that's it. I couldn't remember a lot. I'm horrible with names. He let out that guy let out that we're going to grab the islands back from Iran with the Americans. Oh, so Karg Island's not the target. It's going to be, of course, the target's going to be the islands in Straits of Hormuz, which is just going to be drone hunting targets for anybody that lands on those islands. I feel sorry for these guys because they're just going to be sent into a meat grinder for nothing. As for the Epstein elites, so they can rape and murder and eat some more children. And apparently UAE has decided to stop existing because I'm pretty sure once they're fully in this conflict, Iran is just going to level them. And if you take out the water desalination plants, look, the trilaterate territories that were the 7 sheikdoms that became the UAE until 80 years ago, or less than 80 years ago, really, for the audience that doesn't know that, these entities were nothing more than a small mud brick fort and a small village with a port. That's all there ever was. They were very small. The majority of the Arab population in that area were Bedouins, were nomads, and these small villages with a small warlord sitting there that then became these modern giant cities that cannot feed themselves. One, they don't grow food. Very limited anything they grow, and 2, there's no fresh water. There's not enough fresh water there's barely enough fresh water for the villages that were there, and now those villages of a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people have grown up into cities of 4 or 5 million. You cut off the desalination plants, and you'll have mass casualties within a day to 2 days of people dying from thirst in a 45, 50 degree environment. And if they enter this war, realistically speaking, I think the future of the UAE is going to be post-apocalyptic, half-desert buried cities that they'll have tours to see, something out of Mad Max, the Road Warrior, or Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and that level area, because those they're not capable of surviving without having these technologies. And if they go into a full war with Iran, of course, all that infrastructure is going to become a target. Instantly, it's going to become a target. So those entities, I think, are going to die out as political entities. But they seem to be hell-bent on it for whatever reason. I don't know, you can't fix stupid.
They attacked, Stas, yesterday they attacked 2 water facilities in Iran. But so far from what we've seen, Iran didn't attack desalination plants, didn't attack any sort of, water reservoir when it comes to the Arab states together with Israel. It seems that there is still, as the commander, the head of, the head of Iranian army said, they're keeping their eyes, their focus on logistics, on radars, and forces, American and Israeli forces. And I don't know how long they want to continue with this sort of concept, because right now, as we talk, they attack, power grids in Tehran, for example. Some part of Tehran, they attack the power grid, and they attack universities as well. And what is your understanding about the way that Iran is not going after these facilities, instead that they're attacking, strategic targets?
Well, Iran yesterday issued a warning for all American and Israeli universities in these other countries, which they issued as a humanitarian warning: leave, because we're going to destroy them. As I said, stay a kilometer away from them to save your own students' lives. So they're going to go tit for tat and then some, because they're always, if two Iranian steel plants got hit, Iran hit 6 plants in return. They're escalating higher on that, but they're doing it with warnings, leave, as opposed to the Americans or Israelis that are just hitting plants and hoping to kill as many people as possible. Iran's giving them the warnings, get out before we blow it up. If you stay there, it's your own problem. But I think Iran has gone after a lot of the oil and gas infrastructure back for revenge from its infrastructure being hit. They have not hit the desalination plants. There's one Iranian desalination plant that got hit on Karg Island, where the Americans supposedly want to land. That's right. You don't have enough water there anyway, so let's destroy the water plant. Yeah. Just like they bombed the airstrip, now they can't land on that airstrip if they need to land on the airstrip. So lots of intelligent planning right there. But if they go after those desalination plants, any country that goes into a full war with Iran is going to cease to exist. And I think the UAE is going to be that first case, the case in point for everybody else. Bahrain, it looks like it's questionable whether the king is still there, because the revolution there is only growing in power. They just recently killed one of the Shia leaders of, I don't know, activists. Just tortured him to death. There was videos of his body, photographs of his body. I mean, just in his 20s or something. They just tore him up. So that was. I mean, it's stupid. It's heavy-handed and stupid, because when your population is 80% Shia and they're ready to revolt, doing that just kind of pisses them off even more. So you're guaranteed to have a revolution in the government. But countries like Qatar, areas, the damage. I'll tell you, the damage in Qatar, from my oil and gas supply chain background in Halliburton and Cameron, and then from I was a supply chain director on construction projects for Technomont. So we're expanding part of the Moscow oil refinery to make E85 petro, and we were building one of the 3 phases of the giant Gazprom Neft LNG plant in Amur. So I know how long it takes for the metal construction. I know how long it takes for these vessels. Some of these vessels can be up to 78, 80 meters long, all hand manufactured. Not to mention logistics and logistic nightmares when you're moving things that big. I know how long it takes to do all this, and looking at and then how long if the wellheads are damaged, to replace the wellheads, and if the wells are damaged, what you can do with the wells, or if you have to re-drill totally new wells, the time frames involved. And from the pictures I've seen from the hits on the Qatari LNG plants, you're looking at 1.5 to 2 years. They're going to be down. And if the LNG plants are down for that long, and if it's wellheads, it may be longer. And as this goes on, it could be much more damage. It could be 5 to 7, 8 years down to get everything rebuilt. And then you're looking at that. What normally you get ammonia out of the gas. Use gas to manufacture fertilizer, and until those gas facilities are up and running, there's things like drying gas, cleaning it, drying it, because you've got drying it from water vapor, cleaning it from all the sand and other gases that are involved, which ammonia happens to be one of them. You're not, and until all that's up, you're not going to be getting any fertilizer out of it either. So you're looking at, 30% of the chemical fertilizer being gone off the market for 3, 4, 5 years. Never mind the LNG. That could be at least 1.5 to 2 years at present. It may be much worse before this conflict is over. The disaster level for, that's already created, and for European economies, non-Russian European economies, obviously, and other places, is huge. But again, Iran has hit strategically, and it's parallel. In parallel, it is still destroying the U.S. bases. So it still has that much capacity, no matter what the Americans are saying. And it's hitting Israel very, very hard. Very large parts of Tel Aviv now look like Gaza. You know, talk about karma. So yeah, they've got huge problems. And Iran has not given up the ghost. It's fighting. It's fighting hard. It's taking up casualties. Though that's not. It's not one-sided. But most of the casualties Iran's not taking is civilians being murdered because the U.S. military and Israel can't find the military targets, so they go after civilians as they do every single time.
What do you make of what has happened to Gerald Ford aircraft carrier? Because there were a lot of rumors about, they said it was a laundry room, the fire, somehow was the main problem in those areas. But it's for an aircraft the size of Gerald Ford, it's huge. How can someone imagine that was the problem? It seems that the reports show that the problem is much deeper than that. And what do you make of it?
Look, there's two issues here. First of all, it's the toilets, and the second one is the fire. I interviewed Cameron McGregor. I'm not going into who's related, who he's related to. People can figure it out on their own. And Cameron is former U.S. Navy officer. And I heard it from him, and I've heard it from several other people. Look, the toilets are soft mutiny because the aircraft carrier has been out to sea for 11 months. The people are exhausted. Physically, they're exhausted. They're a lot of them are not trained enough, and I mean, they're physically just exhausted. I mean, imagine even at something the size of an aircraft carrier, you're out there for 11 months. The soft mutiny in that when they want to go back, they'll start doing things. Sailors will start doing things like flushing down the toilet, t-shirts, ropes, things like that, because that blocks up blocks up the filtration systems, and then they start to overflow. I mean, 80% of toilets overflow. That's a pretty big thing on something the size of the size of the Gerald Ford. The fire, and I talked to her. He's like, "Have you ever heard?" First of all, to understand, this ship has thousands of compartments that are watertight, so they're airtight. They can be closed off so the ship doesn't sink, right? It's very hard to sink an aircraft carrier, just for no other reason, just for that. 30 hours to put out a fire in a laundromat. And I asked Cameron, have you ever heard of something like that? He's like, no, I've never heard of anything like that. That's not realistic. More than likely what happened is they got hit. And the hit, whatever missile or large drone that hit, created enough damage that it had a fire incident that took 30 hours to put out. It's hard to believe that it was just some kind of one compartment that could have been closed off. Even if it was spread for 30 hours, they were putting the fire out.
Yeah. We've learned, from the mainstream media, mostly in the United States, they're talking about that the United States, the Trump administration, the Defense Department is looking for companies that can quickly supply prefabricated transportable bunkers to protect troops. Where do they need these, bunkers? Are they going to use them in one of these islands? Are they going to use them in, Arab states? I don't know. What is the main objective of these bunkers?
Well, one, they need them at every single one of those 23 bases because apparently none of them have ever built bunkers. As a former armor and a former infantry officer, I find that mind-boggling. I mean, ground forces, they stop somewhere for longer than a couple hours. You start digging in a combat environment, let alone you're standing there for good. You start making bunkers. You start making fortified positions where, in case you get artillery, you have places to hide and wait it out. The fact that these bases these naval and these Air Force bases have no bunkers is mind-boggling. But also, more than likely, yes, they're trying to create bunkers for if they take the islands, they have someplace to hide. I mean, look, it's great you're in bunkers, but sooner or later you're going to go outside and take a piss. You can only do things inside a bunker for so long. Never mind, you have to bury the bunkers to get them there. And great, you're in bunkers. Meanwhile, drones are flying over you. FPV drones are flying over your head all over the place. I mean, look, a range for a large FPV drone with a large battery pack on it, with the ability to carry a 20 kilogram payload, which easily two large RPG rounds. It's the type of drones that Russian mass manufactures. I'm not saying they could be in Iran or anything, but they could be in Iran. I mean, they could just appear there. Those types of drones have a 50-kilometer range. Every one of those islands is easily within that range. And you try to find the drone operator. You put, it's two-man teams. You put two-man teams under this tree. You put two-man teams under that cliff. You put two-man teams on that roof. Each of them with a dozen drones, and go have fun. And this is the reality of what you're looking at. And those troops that are going to be sent on those islands are just going to get butchered. They're going to be hunted by drones day and night. And I'm not talking Shahed or Garan type drones, the big drones. I'm talking about FPV drones, which, by the way, can accelerate from 0 to 120 in about 2 seconds. So you're not going to outrun them either. That's the point. You want to take these islands, and besides, you take these islands and then what? Because, by the way, those drones, they work really well on ships too. As a matter of fact, ships can't run. I mean, it's that simple. You put 100 of those drones out flying into any one American destroyer, and you may not sink it, but you're going to damage the hell out of it because it's not going to be able to stop them. It may stop 30, 40, but there'll be so many hits going off that destroyer is going to be very damaged. By the way, there's, the American media isn't saying a word about the U.S. Navy's denying it, but it looks like very serious information that. Early on there was a Aegis class destroyer that was heavily damaged while refueling, and two, a transport ship with missiles, Tomahawks and such, was sunk by a Iranian submarine. So, of course, you're not going to get any kind of acknowledgement of that from Washington anytime from that regime. But sometime in the future, we may find the truth. Or when we get the videotapes back from that submarine.
Looking at the way that Donald Trump is managing the war, or somehow trying to continue the war.
Stop. Managing? You need to rephrase that. Screwing it up, yes. Managing? There's no managing here.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But what does he want? What do we know? Is he seeking? When, let's assume he sends all these Marines in one of these islands and they get somehow killed by the drones, by missiles, but all of this. So what is the gain for him? What is he risking? What is the main reason behind this sort of gamble that he's taking?
The 4-day war, which is now in 30 days, remember 4 days, it's going to be all over in 4 days. They are clueless what to do. Look, they need Iran to stop firing, and so they can leave and declare that they had a victory. And for some reason, the Iranian government doesn't want to play ball. So now what do? They don't know what to do. I mean, look, the news is coming out of, never mind you had, Kent, Joe Kent. This guy, Kent, he's talking a lot about how much the Israelis actually control the U.S. government. Most people that wanted to know this already knew this, but this is just more confirmation. B, the news that came out. First of all, back about a year ago, I watched a clip with Tulsi Gabbard where she's saying, Trump, because of the way his mentality works, we have to reorganize the daily security brief. The daily security brief normally for a president is, here's about 5 pages of information. Go read it, sir. This is what's going on in the world. Trump doesn't like to read. I think he knows how to read, but he doesn't like to read. So she said they were making it into a Fox News type mini brief for like 10, 15 minutes. This is the world in little tiny clips. God forbid you have to go into depth on anything. Well, last couple of days, it was, I think it's in the New York Times, actually, maybe Washington Post. They had an article come out from an insider that said, look, the president's brief on this conflict every day is 2 to 3 minutes long. And all it is explosions, things in Iran blowing up. And there's plenty of things in Iran blowing up. Let's be honest about it. The U.S. is sending a lot of ordnance into Iran. But that's his entire brief. So in his mind, yeah, we've won bigly. We're Mr. Bigly. We win bigly every day. Why haven't the Iranians stopped? Hey, they don't have anything left. Whether he wants to see the reality or whether he's being cushioned from the reality. But the point is, you know, if all you're looking at is 2 to 3 minute raw video of things blowing up, you're going to have a very skewed view of reality. And that Iran is continuing to strike everything in range, that doesn't fit into those 2-3 minutes of things blowing up. So you're dealing with a president that may be in early stages of dementia, and I think he is, because just look at the way he's speaking from Trump 1 to Trump 2. He's in short, choppy sentences. He's using words that like a 10, 11, 12-year-old uses to describe things, not an adult, an educated adult. And he's getting less coherent. He's getting more rambling and less coherent in any of his speeches. I mean, my God, it's painful to listen to them. At least I could take a break and go have a coffee between portions of his speech. His audience that can't leave, you know, they have to sit through that. I feel sorry for them, honestly speaking. But that's what you're dealing with, and I think he's seriously out of touch with reality. He doesn't know how to end this. None of them know how to end this. No, except for the ones that really want to expand this into a crusade, into Tehran. We're going to burn those Muslims down because we're going to end the world, because we're going to get Armageddon. You know, the psychopath portion, the heretic Christian Zionists, you know, like Hexen, the minister of war. We're going to have war. You know, these people are insane. I mean, they're not questionably insane. They're absolutely insane. Johnson, and there's so many of them. The neocons, I think, are in panic mode. They finally got the war they've all been wanting for 40 years, and it's gone to shit. And they don't know what to do now. You know, they're in panic. Oh my God, what the hell do we do now? Well, gentlemen, you wanted a war. Nobody said you were going to win it. So they need to get off from this somehow. They don't know how to get out of this. Because Iran has said flat out reparations. And I'll tell you, the average American senator would rather eat his liver or his children's liver. Okay, I won't say his children because I think some of them do. They'd rather eat his own liver before paying reparations to Iran. But what do you do now? I mean, if this war goes on for 30 years or 30 days or 30 months, the U.S. loses bigly no matter what, because, look, fuel prices are skyrocketing in the U.S. Everything's on diesel in the U.S. I mean, we're talking not from the railhead to the store, but from port to the store. Most things travel by trucks. Fuel prices, everything is very fuel price sensitive. Trump's tariff Armageddon has really killed the economy as it is. The U.S. is in a recession. If you actually go by 2 negative growth quarters, it's in a recession. Things aren't going to get better. And they don't know what to do with it. They're clueless at this point. They need something to grab onto and say, we won. And those bastards in Tehran just don't want to give us that victory. So what do? Instead of just taking their lickings and saying, fine, we were going to step back, they're going to double down and triple down. Now they're going to send the infantry in to do what? Grab islands and get killed and be hunted by drones. And that's going to change what? Nothing. But I don't know what they're thinking, because, you know, when the corpses start coming back in mass, where, I mean, U.S. has already taken at least 10 times more casualties than they're admitting to, if we're going to talk realistically. But those that are still low enough, you know, 100 here or 100 there dead, you can still hide it and write it off and do things like that. And those types of articles, obituaries start appearing on the second day. Died from medical reasons, but not combat related. In one of the bases that's been hit. Okay, sure, whatever. He tripped, fell down the stairs, and broke his neck. You know, something like that, as opposed to getting hit by ordnance. But when there's thousands of dead or dying or wounded, heavily wounded troops that you can't evacuate efficiently, that's pretty hard to hide. I mean, let's be honest about that. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. The other front, Stas, is what's going on in Lebanon. And what we've learned so far, that they're rationing their interceptors. They don't have that much to use against Iranian missiles, together with the rockets coming from Hezbollah on the other front. And they're running out of interceptors. They're running out of tanks. In 40, the new reports show that they're suffering. They're destroying. Hezbollah is destroying a lot of tanks, at the southern part of Lebanon. The way that the Israelis haven't experienced this in 40 years, it seems how shocking that is for their army. It's not just about the tanks, about the way that they're attacking Israelis and killing Israelis.
Well, they're attacking the Israeli army. Let's begin with that.
Israeli army.
There's talk about up to 100 tanks destroyed. But okay, first of all, let's be realistic about it. There are not 100 tanks destroyed. There may be 100 tanks destroyed and damaged. Most tanks that look destroyed, they're not destroyed. They will be pulled back. They'll get repaired and they'll be put back online. Same thing as what happens in our conflict in Ukraine. A lot of that armor is not destroyed. There were in World War II, just as a prime example, there were tanks that would go through 4 crews that, everybody's died inside, or half the crews died inside. They've been hit. They've even been burned. They get pulled back. Everything gets cleaned out. They get patched up, and the machine goes back into combat. So there's that moment. The interesting point for me, of course, right off the bat, is not that they're being hit by drones, but that these tanks have no grills. They have no anti-drone preparations. Israel was fighting drones and started putting grills on some of their tanks in Gaza. And here they go into Lebanon, and these are reserves that are being pulled in, and they're not being prepared at all, which is interesting enough, because you think they've already got some experience of what drone warfare is, what we've been dealing with for 4 years, and they're not prepared. It's just interesting enough. And then they had a call up of 350,000 reserves, about a third of whom refused to show up. So you're already having problems in society. A third of your reserves said, hell no. Now Netanyahu's declared a call up of another 450,000. Now let's understand, when Russia mobilized, it mobilized about 350 to 400,000 troops. And these were all reservists, most of whom just came off active duty, and a lot of them had combat experience, out of a reserve pool of 32 million. That's everybody that's had any kind of military service. So Russia has a reserve pool of 32 million men that have, and some women, that have had any kind of military service. But Russia's a country of 150 million. Israel pulls up 350,000 reserves out of a population of about 9 million, and now it's going to pull up another 450,000 reserves. Now, let's break that down a little further. So you figure in most societies, if they're a healthy society, underage children are about half of the population. Okay, let's say a little less, 40% of the population. That's 3,600,000. That leaves you with what? That leaves you 5,400,000. Then you separate the elderly. Let me take another million off. So you got 3.5 million adults, working adults, right? You've already had pull-ups of reserves for Gaza. You now have another 350. Now you're going to have another 450. Even if a third of those don't show up, you're still looking at about another 600,000 people, or about 20% of your workforce taken out of your workforce economically. So your economy is now in collapse just from that. And that's not counting any disruptions from cities being hit, people having to flee certain areas because you've started a war you can't win, but you want to save your political career and not have and not sit the rest of your life out in a cage that you more than deserve. And what happens to your country? Your country is dead. Well, it's not fully dead because luckily there's American tax serfs that will happily fork over hundreds of billions of dollars to keep your country afloat while their own country collapses. Yeah, there's that for the American audience to think about. You're the backstop for all of Israel's problems. So, I mean, economically, in a country that size, you can't keep that up for very long. Literally cannot keep that up for very long. But we know what the Israeli aim is because Israeli politicians flat out say it's to exterminate the population of southern Lebanon, annex it, and build Israeli villages there. End of story. They flat out tell you that. They don't hide it. They boast it. They're not the ones on the front line fighting, of course, but they boast about it. It's all part of Greater Israel. We're going to annex right now a third of Lebanon. Then we're going to go for more. And with all the bombing in Beirut, you see, I mean, Lebanon is three societies in one. It's Orthodox and Catholic Christians, which are third. It's Shia Muslims, which is the third. And it's Sunni Muslims, which is another third. And a lot of times they fight amongst themselves. Well, Hezbollah is the Shia, and Israel has always been careful to fight Hezbollah without engaging the Sunnis or the Christians. But now they're bombing Christian neighborhoods left and right. And the Lebanese army, which is predominantly, call it an army is a stretch. It's a militia. It's a very large militia, not that well armed. Hezbollah is better armed than the Lebanese army. But they're a Christian army. And now you're bombing Christian neighborhoods. You're killing Christians in Lebanon. So the Lebanese army can't sit this out and go, yeah, it's just Israel and Hezbollah. Let them fight. Now they're going to be involved. So you're pulling in more and more opponents. But they're doing it out of pure arrogance because we're just going to exterminate them and take them all. Who cares, what their religious background is? That's the attitude they're having. The people in charge of Israel are insane. I don't know how else to put it. They're absolutely insane. You can't deal with people like that. You can only crush people like that because they don't have a moral compass that most people would not understand. They're not in this reality.
When it comes to invading these islands in the Persian Gulf, close to the Strait of Hormuz, I don't know why why does the United States need to do that? They have to put Israelis on the front line, I think. That's a better solution. If they wanted this fight, they have to be on the front line fighting Iranians. Why do they need to put Marines to fight for Israelis? If that's the whole concept is to help Israel.
Oh, this isn't just about Israel. Let's not confuse that. Israel plays a large role in this. Israel may have been the one that finally started this. But let's not just say this is about Israel. The U.S. wants to, the neocons in the U.S. want to control oil and gas worldwide. They want to topple the difference between Israel's aims and the U.S. neocon aims is the U.S. neocons don't want to destroy Iran as a country. They want to topple the government, put their own dictator in place, and then have free access to all the infrastructure, i.e. the energy and the mineral infrastructure in place. They don't want to destroy it. It's money. It's money and control over key resources. The Israelis want to destroy Iran because Iran to them is a threat, like any country bigger than them is a threat. And, they're already actively talking about Turkey's next. And then guess what comes after Turkey? There's Egypt on the other side. They want to destroy everybody around. That's what they're aiming for. So and then there's the American Zionist Christians, those heretics. They just want the end of the world. I mean, can we just have the end of the world already? I mean, how many times do we have to ask? We just want to kill everybody off so we can teleport to heaven. And they're very skewed rearrangement of Christianity. So you're dealing with different parties. I mean, they're sojourning together in this war, but they all have different aims. Somebody controls the minerals and the resources. Someone just destroy all the political opponents. The other party just wants to kill the world and just get it over with already. I mean, just to understand how insane some of these people are. And there's this girl who was in one of my classes. She's like a little sister to me, and we lost touch for about 20 something years. She found me on Facebook. We're writing back and forth. We still write back and forth once in a while. And she calls me up about 2 years ago when it looked like we may be on the edge of a nuclear exchange between Russia and the Biden White House. She's like, "I'm so glad I'm going to get to see you soon." Like, you and your husband planning to come visit us in Russia? No, in heaven. We're going to have the end of the world finally. I mean, literally, these people are in power in the U.S., at least one of the three groups that are in power in the U.S. People have a hard time understanding what they're dealing with. You're talking about Iran has fanatics. Well, the Iranian fanatics also have Christians and Jews in their government and in their societies, and they're protected. So I don't know how much of their fanatics. But the American fanatics want the end of the world, and the Israeli fanatics believe that if they bring Israel to the edge of destruction, the Messiah is going to come and wipe out everybody in the Middle East and let them rule the world, at least that part of the world. Who's got the worst fanatics at this point? Well, let's see. The people that really haven't started a war in 200 years, or the people that can't stop from starting a war for 200 days. I mean, look, the nut jobs are in the West. Flat out in the U.S. and in Israel. That's where your insane people are right now. Absolutely insane. Or as they used to say in the army, batshit crazy. Don't know why. Don't ask me why that saying is what it is, but that's the saying. Batshit crazy. I mean, they. That's what we're dealing with. I mean, the neocons are a nice, tame, understandable bunch compared to the Christian Zionists.
In your opinion, what would be the way out for Donald Trump if he decides to do that? Because I see him in a very desperate situation right now. He literally cannot do anything but, saying that I won the war while he knows that he was defeated. And what else can he do? Because I see him in a very difficult and unbelievably, complicated situation right now.
No matter what he does, he's screwed. It's just a matter of how badly he's screwed and how badly the U.S. is screwed. I mean, the moment the first missile went off, he was screwed. By the way, because Trump and because Washington has a culture of lying, and more lying, they're lying because they're breathing. They did not believe, just like they didn't believe Russia when Russia said, we will take this matter into in our own hands over Ukraine. They didn't believe Iran when Iran said we were going to hit all the bases. We're going to close the Straits of Hormuz and everything else. They said it's bluffing. That's what we do all the time. We bluff. What's bluffing? It's lying. We lie all the time. So the Iranians are lying. And when they did it, they're like, oh, crap. That's the whole, oh, crap. We don't have a plan for this. What do we do now? So now what do you do now? Well, they don't know what to do. I mean, Trump can spin this for his MAGA base, what's left of his MAGA base, and easily. They'll believe anything. Because the people that are left in MAGA, most of MAGA is left. More than half of MAGA is left because they voted for end of these wars. They voted for taking care of the country. They voted for everything but what Trump is doing. Trump was promising, but did everything opposite. They left. The people that are left in MAGA, they're the hardcore groupies. They're the people that bought Trump coins and earned Trump $30 billion before he became president. And there were Melania coins too. These are diehard idiots. They get their news just like the Democrats have their diehard woke idiots that get all their news from MSNBC. These are the diehard Republican idiots that get all their news from Fox, or worse yet, Newsmax. Fox is balanced compared to Newsmax. If you've never read Newsmax, my God, it's the propaganda organs of the Nazi Party, for how it matters. Or there's everything the great leader has done. That's praised the great leader every day. It's hard. Yeah. If that's all your source of news, my God. I mean, most Republicans are not idiots, and they've left because they wanted peace. They wanted things taken care of inside the country, and Trump's betrayed all of them. But those that are left in that mega base, I mean, they're diehard fanatics. So he could spin anything to them. The problem is the rest of the Republicans, they're not going to vote Republican. They may stay home on the next elections. Trump is going to get trounced. There's a good chance. Well, there's a very good chance they're going to lose at least one house in Congress. If they lose two, then it's nothing but impeachment for the next 2 years of Trump's presidency. He's done.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard the CPAC? They had, the crowd was asked about the impeachment. And here is what the crowd was telling, in terms of the impeachment of Donald Trump. Here is Stas.
You would like to see impeachment hearings? No. That was the wrong answer. Let me try it again. How many of you would like to see impeachment hearings? No. Can someone bring some coffee out for the people of CPAC?
I know.
We've got to keep this House majority. How many of you agree with that?
Yeah. You see, the situation is so dire for Donald Trump. Even in CPAC, people believe that he should be impeached. And I don't know how it's somehow impossible to change the tone right now.
Most of these Republicans are going to go for impeachment too. Once the casualties, really large casualty numbers, start coming back and they can't hide them, most of these Republicans are going to go for impeachment too. Because a lot of Republicans hate Trump; they're just afraid of him. But once he's weakened his position totally, I mean, he could say something of his position. He just said, "Mission accomplished. We're done." But by the way, to do that, what are the donor-owner class going to say? Because the majority of the big donor class happens to be tied with Israel. They're going to be very unhappy. I mean, Trump's got no way to back out of this any which way. And we don't know if, some people are thinking he and his family may have been threatened. I don't think so. Manipulated, yeah, I'm sure, given very limited information, probably, because Trump 1 didn't go for this, even though Netanyahu was pushing hard back then to do this. Trump 2, early stage dementia, manipulation, psyops, yeah, it could have all happened. I don't think it was threats to his or his family's lives. His family's through Kirshner and such are absolute Zionists tied directly to the Ukraine, to the government in Israel. In fact, there's British intel that was reported that him and Woodcock are just Israeli assets, and they are Israeli assets. I mean, come on, you don't have to be blind to understand that. It's just a matter of bad or worse at this point for Trump. And I think he just he's going to choose worse. Unfortunately, he could just stop this today and say, "We won. We changed the government." No, they did change the government. They changed the government to the worst thing they could have ever changed. They killed off the old generation that was still pro-Western and wanted to have dealings with the West, and they've replaced them with the 50-somethings that grew up on the front lines fighting the Iraqi-American proxy. And they want revenge. It's their time, and they want revenge for everything that's been done to them. Understandably so. But that's the last people he wanted to come to power, and that's the people they brought to power. This is as stupid of a move as anybody can imagine. But stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah. So, how many Ukrainians were killed by Iranian attack on these facilities, on this equipment that it seems that the Ukrainian government sent to these Arab states? It seems 12 Ukrainians, somehow, something like that. And how many Ukrainians are there, right? Because they're fighting right now. They're in the fight. And how is that possible to send forces in the Persian Gulf for these Arab states? These guys are somehow, I don't know what is happening in the mind of the Zelensky administration.
Well, Ukrainians as good American proxies, and they are, absolutely, so they're an American asset. And all American assets get tossed all over the place. We've seen Ukrainian special forces training jihadists everywhere in North Africa and in the Middle East. They trained that psychopath El Jalani and his guys for the final push against Saddam. Granted, the Syrian army collapsed, and there was a lot of issues of why it collapsed outside of all this. The Russian military in Syria wiped out 2,500 of these guys in 1 week, and the Lion Brigade is still fighting. But the fact is that these guys were prepared by the Ukrainians. We've seen throughout the Sahel that's revolted against French rule, all the jihadists in the Sahel and in northern Nigeria are all trained by Ukrainians. We see Colombians and Mexican cartels are sending troops or mercenaries in, and they're not just there for money, they're there to get combat training. And the Ukrainians are giving them combat training. The drone operators are going to be killing Americans, as well as Mexican government officials are all trained by Ukraine. And there was even an article that came out from, I think, the New York Times. 70% of the heavy weapons and missiles, Stinger missiles, Javelin missiles, and so on, mortars. I mean, these cartels have armies. They're not a bunch of thugs running around in cars shooting at each other. These are actually combat-trained militias, very heavily armed combat-trained militias, RPGs, javelins, stingers, drone operators. I mean, this is the whole world. And they said 70% of cartel armaments are now coming from Ukraine. Heavy enough armaments to take on the Mexican army and take on the United States border forces and level heavy casualties on. So Americans are having blowback right now from the Zelensky regime. There's going to be a lot of dead Americans around the Mexican border thanks to Zelensky, thanks to the American regime in D.C. that's arming Zelensky and has continued to arm Zelensky. Trump hasn't ever stepped back. Trump is still sending weapons there. I mean, let's be honest. He's still giving intel to the Zelensky regime, and the Zelensky regime is arming. They will train and arm any thug anywhere in the world. Nazi, drug cartels, Islamic jihadists, anybody. They don't give a damn. You got the money, you're going to get the arms and the training. That's what they're for. That's their little business. So, of course, countries like Iran, countries like, Russia directly, countries like Iran and any other country that has any sanity in it has to fight this cancer as that cancer spreads into all of the European Union, the Middle East, and other places. And, it's safer for these thugs, these Zelensky thugs, to fight against Iran remotely, obviously, on these bases, than to fight against Russia. Where on average they lose about 1,500 dead a day. So their chances of survival are much better against Iran right now, as long as the Americans don't toss them across the border and make them charge up a mountainside. as long as they're so far away, they get hit. Well, they may get hit, but their survival chances are better than inside Ukraine. So they go everywhere. I mean, that's what we're looking at. That's what Zelensky is. Zelensky and his thugs are a cancer on all of humanity that, thanks to Americans, again, thanks to D.C., Washington, humanity is going to be suffering from for a long time, because no matter how many of them we destroy, by the end of this conflict, there'll still be several 100,000 of them with a very specific skill sets out looking for money and a way to earn. And weapons, by the way, lots of weapons.
Yeah. The sad reality of, is this, exactly. Thank you, Stas.
Thank you.
Pleasure, as always.
Always a pleasure.